Hello again, my wonderful Toastmaster friends and most welcome guests. I feel truly blessed and privileged to be here speaking to you again. What could I possibly be talking about today? Killing the vampire. No, I'm not going to talk about vampire hunters, not vampire movies. It's not going to be Team Jacob versus Team Edward. Sorry, all you Twilight fans. No, last week I gave a speech about how I learned to use smiling to enhance my life, to change my attitude from a negative to a more positive outlook, and how that's improved my life and my relation to others. At the end of that speech, I used a personal story of reuniting with my father after 20 years of not communicating with him due to a falling out we had. Afterwards, a few of the members came up to me and told me how touched they were by that story. And all of your comments touched me in a deeply personal and a very positive way. And for that, I'm very thankful and inspired. But there's more to that story. Beneath this calm and serene and tranquil individual you see here now, there was a storm of emotional and mental chaos. 20 years is a long time. In that speech, I also mentioned that the first step I made to reuniting with my father was a phone call. That phone call was the most difficult call I had to make in my life. In fact, it took me 6 long months to gather up the courage to make that call. Why did it take me so long? Why was it so hard for me to do it, even though I wanted to do it, even though I needed to do it? The reason why it took me so long was because I was fighting a war against an invisible force. In a book I read recently called The War of Art, the author, Stephen Pressfield, calls that force resistance with a capital R. He describes this force as coming from within all of us. This is the force we place on ourselves whenever we have something important to do, something that's meaningful or beneficial to ourselves, whether it's applying for a new job, or starting a new business, or asking someone that you love to marry you. This is resistance, and it's always there. It helps us to procrastinate. It helps us to doubt ourselves. It helps us to come up with dozens of excuses for not doing what we need to do to improve our lives. This book has been very useful to me, not only in my personal development, but in my career as well. My favorite quote from the book is, "The more important a call or action is to the evolution of our soul, the more resistance we will feel towards pursuing it." In those first few months after I had already decided to call my father, all I could think about was, when was I going to make that call? But the excuses for not doing it were so good. I'll call tomorrow. What if he asked me why I haven't called in so long? What will I say? Fear and doubt were with me every time I thought about it. But there was something else, something that was weighing on my heart, something that was dragging me down, draining my energy. But I wasn't able to identify it as an enemy until I heard a speech a few months ago called Killing the Vampire. The speaker, a comedian called Duncan Trussell, learned to identify his internal enemies as vampires, bloodsuckers, parasites. He said that, just like in the movies, vampires can only enter a place that they're invited into. I had invited in my vampire by keeping the resentment and anger I felt towards my father for 20 long years. This vampire had been hanging on my neck, sucking on my blood, draining my energy for all that time. I didn't even know it. But just like in the movies, vampires can be killed. We all know how to kill vampires. The first step in killing a vampire is by bringing it into the daylight, exposing it, so that all can see it. I had already done that when I decided to make that call. And I also told my mother and my sister that I was going to do it. The second step in killing a vampire is by direct action. You drive a stake in its heart. The only way I could be sure to let go of my resentment and anger was to see my father. I knew that by seeing him, after 20 years, whatever leftover resentment and anger would fall away. I would be killing my vampire. I kept thinking about it that way, and I finally made that phone call. They say time heals all wounds. This is very true. After 20 years, I had no anger left towards my father. He's 70 years old, and he's starting to forget things and starting to repeat himself. But what about the resentment? The famous and well-respected leader, Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 27 years in South Africa, for no other reason that he wanted equality for all black South Africans. After he was released from prison, he said, resentment is like drinking a bottle of poison to kill your enemy. That's amazing. I've learned also that resentment not only harms you, but it harms others as well. In that speech I gave last week, I used the image of a water fountain to describe the way a person can affect others by providing them with life-giving water in the form of joy, happiness, and smiles. For those 20 years that I carried that resentment in my heart, I was poisoning whatever water I had and giving it to others who got near me. But all of that is in the past. I have no regrets because all of that has brought me to this present moment right now. And that's what matters. Now I know what to do whenever something's going wrong in my life. First, I look for the resistance and fear because that's where I know I need to focus my energy. Second, I identify the vampire. And third, I kill it with light and direct action. My friends, I've been inspired by so many things, books and people, most especially by you. I thank you for your support and kind attention.